Oh, hold on a second. Yeah, there we go. We're live now. All right, so let's just give it a few seconds. So, Cyan, where were you last night? No, I'm kidding. Don't answer that. Please don't.
That you caught me completely off. Are we waiting for people to join us? Or are we?
Yeah. It's just give it a second. I think I can see how many viewers we have. We just wait until we have a few viewers, then we get started.
Chris is notifying me that it says the live event will start in a few minutes.
Yeah, it's a slight delay. Okay, we should be live now.
Okay, great.
Okay, people are coming on now.
Are we able to see who's on as well?
I don't think I can see who they are, but I can see the number.
Oh, I see. Okay.
All right, so we're 8 minutes in, so we should just get started. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to another BFT Hangout session. This one is a very important one. It's on education. This is a very, very timely subject in our country, and many, many countries actually, but definitely in our country, considering some of the recent test results we've gotten and just some of the challenges we have as a country. So we want to delve into that conversation a bit with some really awesome panelists and an awesome moderator. And my name is Farrell Goff. I'm one of the admins of BFT, probably one of the worst behaving admin of BFT, but don't worry about that. It's not about me. But we do have an awesome panel, and I'm going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves for a quick second, starting with Sian. And I'm going to try to pronounce everybody's name correctly, but I have broad shoulders and thick skin, so correct me if I'm wrong, okay? I won't be hurt by it. So I think we're going to start with Sian, correct? Did I get that right?
I actually spelled it, and I put the pronunciation in brackets.
That helps.
Too.
Yes, that helps. So Sian, just tell us a bit about yourself real quick.
Well, I am a teacher right now. I've been teaching for the better part of 14 years. And I also am a home educator, so I homeschool my children, and I teach. I teach at the preschool level. I am a very, very passionate advocate of progressive education. I've done a lot of research into education. I've done half of my education degree, and so I was really trained as a graphic designer. But I moved into education and went in wholesale, as we say. And I, what was I going to say? Interrupted myself. Right. So teaching for 14 years, and I have been involved in education and learned a tremendous amount and continue to learn, and I'm open to learn.
Excellent. Good. And so we also have Gina, who's joining us. Gina, I think your name is pretty easy to pronounce. I got that correct, I'm sure.
Yes.
So just tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about your background.
Okay. I'm a teacher. I have back in the States, the state that I was in, you had to have your master's in order to teach. So my background is I did my undergrad in sociology, and then I have my master's in early childhood ed. I taught a first, second grade split class in the States and a third, fourth grade split class. And I moved to the Bahamas in 2007, taught third grade here for 2 years, and between that time and now, I've had 3 beautiful children, and I'm looking to get back into the education system probably in the next year, I am hoping. So.
Okay. Excellent. Sian, did you also teach outside of the Bahamas? You have some.
No, I've only ever taught here.
Okay, cool. So Gina, you'll be able to give us some kind of context as it relates, maybe some comparison to what you've experienced outside of the Bahamas in America and then what you experienced here. So that's pretty cool. Thank you, Gina. And we have our moderator, and very excited about this. I don't think you can get closer to education than this particular person, seeing that she is a student herself. We have Alea, and I hope Alea, are you with us? Yeah, I think I see. She may have froze. Her screen may have froze. Okay, maybe she dropped off. I'm sure she'll be back on because she's actually our guest moderator today. But until then, we'll pick up the slack. We're really kind of excited to have her involved because for me personally, I think so many times we have this discussion, and it's we never involve students. We think we have all the answers for them. We know what's best for them, and we're going to tell you what you're going to do for the next 12 years. But we never really get their input and their perspective. So it's important. I'm sure she's going to jump back on in a minute, and because I would like to get her perspective. But just to get out of the gate, guys. Again, we'll start with you, Sian. What is, if you can kind of just give us I think Alea is coming back on now. Hey.
Sorry about that. I had a lot of technical difficulties.
No problem. Okay, so you're back. We just want to introduce you real quick, and we have Alea here with us, who is currently a student. So I think she's gonna, as the guest moderator and a participant, she can bring a very fresh and unique perspective, seeing that students are very rarely a part of this conversation. So Alea, tell us a bit about yourself real quick.
Okay, my name is Alea Ajigal, but you can just say Alea. It's a pretty complicated name, I know. I'm 16 years old. I am a senior at Kingsway Academy. Yay, go Saints! I am the debate club president, and I am a student council member. And I'm planning on getting my degrees in the United States in either archaeology or stem cell research.
Oh wow! Okay, cool, excellent. So that's really good. So and Alea is going to, like I said earlier, is going to be our guest moderator, and I'm going to kind of just turn it over to her. But I think out of the gate for Alea, what I was asking Sian, and I would also want Gina to answer. After your experience with education in this country, if you could just give us a short summary of kind of, where you think we are. I know it's a very broad question, but if you can try for me, just kind of sum it up rather quickly, and then we'll kind of dissect it and get a bit more into the guts of education in the Bahamas. Just kind of a summary of where we are based off of what you've been exposed to and your perspective. Sian.
The short answer to that, I think, is that we are, I hate to use the word, we're stuck. I think we're stuck. And we're stuck in an antiquated way, which is not unlike many other countries. We're trying to solve new problems with old ways, and I think that is the most succinct summary I would have of our education system here, but not just here. But since we're talking about here, I'll say here.
Yeah. I think we can agree there. That's a pretty good way to sum it up. And when we get deeper into the conversation, we'll talk about why we're stuck. But Gina, what's been your perspective, especially bringing some of that experience and exposure from outside of our borders coming in?
Yeah, absolutely stuck. We're stuck in this perpetuating cycle that just seems to just keep going round and around and around until something changes dramatically. We're just going to keep perpetuating this circle. And we'll get to the various points of what within that circle and maybe how we can break it. But I just see this hamster going round and around and around in the wheel and hoping to get somewhere new. But how can you when you're just...
Yeah, you keep doing the same thing over and over. I mean, that's kind of indicative of many things in our country, so it's not surprising that education start, it's the same. And then just to throw this out there, for me and I think for everybody else, we as Bahamians, we do need to come to the appreciation that everything begins and ends with education. I always say this, that the most progressive countries, the most successful countries on earth, they've made the transition mainly through their investment and their commitment to education. That's really where the change came from, and then everything else followed. So this is it's kind of saddening for us to hear that we're in this rut, but I think that's why we're starting to have these type of conversations where we can maybe lend some assistance to our government officials or whoever the case and all the decision makers in terms of what we can do to get out of this rut. Alea, I'm
Yes.
now going to turn it over to you, my dear. So please, I am here as co-moderator, and I'm always lurking in the bushes in the background. But I'm going to turn it over to you, my dear. Good luck.
Okay. Well, a strong educational system is the foundation of any country. It's an important factor in any country's development, but the progress requires the cooperation of people with different abilities, experiences, and a specialized training working together to produce a dynamic system which could be improved over a period of time. And so Sienna's right, we are stuck. At first I thought, well, before the Hangout, when you guys came to me, I actually researched the history of our educational system. And it seemed like we were actually going somewhere at one point, but then I don't know what happened, but we just stopped. And our country has so much potential, but because of slackness and I would like to say a messy curriculum, we're going nowhere. So I'm really glad that the focus of today's Hangout and discussion is on the Bahamian school system and how it measures up when compared to our foreign counterparts. So I have this huge notes in my phone, and I've actually named the discussion education in the Bahamas, the past, the present, and the future, because I was hoping that by the end of the discussion we'd be able to expound on ways to improve our secondary school system, our elementary school system, while addressing the flaws, because we need to get somewhere. We really need to get somewhere.
Absolutely agreed. So I'm just going to drop off, seeing that I'm not needed anymore. We have a professional moderator apparently amongst us, so my job here is done. No, I'm kidding. And so, Alea, where do you want these guys to start the conversation? Let's jump into the guts of it now. We've done a little bit of fluff. Let's just get into the nitty gritty.
Okay. I wanted to start with the big elephant in the room, the school system as it stands. So, as teachers and parents, and just as adults, the people who've actually raised and helped children, the national averages for math and English are excruciatingly low. So how do you all feel about that right now? How does that make you feel?
It's saddening. It really is saddening, because no kid, they all are bright. They all have potential, and it's just saddening to see the country in that state, because what are these children going to then go forth and produce for this country when you have D's as an average? Those are our future. These children are our future, and what are we saying to them, especially with this jumbled mess the education system's in right now? What are we telling them that their future is going to look like? I mean, one of the big issues I see, and I was going around the Freethinkers website, beforehand and seeing what some of the comments were, but I do think that food plays a huge part in this, because I've seen it both here and in the States, that when a child comes to your classroom and they haven't been fed properly, their brain cannot turn on and cannot function. If your breakfast has been Fruit Loops and Cocoa Pebbles, by 10 o'clock your sugar rush is done, and you have nothing else to function on. So, I mean, it's almost, I feel like this whole thing, and I was looking and making all of my notes this morning, the big thing that came back to me, there was two things that stuck out to me. One was the word invest. We need to invest, and I'm talking like huge amounts of money and time into the education system.
Gina, I don't mean to interrupt, but it's so interesting that you say food. I can tell you now, in my opinion, as someone who's, I've kind of been involved with a lot of public discussions, that has never, ever entered the educational conversation in terms of why
Right.
we are where we are, why we have the results that we have. I have never. I mean, I've seen some of the comments in BFT, and they've been substantiated too, by the way. So I don't doubt that that has a lot to do with it. But I have never heard any one of the stakeholders in education, whether it was a teacher, a government official, a parent, ever bring up the issue of food being one of the major contributing factors to where we are today. So it's just interesting that you bring that perspective.
It is. I mean, it's really interesting. The notes that I was making, it's like some schools do serve lunch if, social services say that you can give it to a certain kid, or they have to carry money to the school to get this. But what is that food that's being served then? Is it chicken and fries? Is it just food from your local greasery that you're putting into these children? Is there any mandate of veg and fruit and, the good calories? I know in the States that their meals that are cooked in the school have to be a certain amount of calories for these kids a day. There's milk served. There's no Capri Sun. There's no juice. It's, they're getting their milk. When you look at the snacks that the kids are bringing to school, they're Little Debbie's. They're bags of chips. I mean, maybe some kids will have a banana and an apple, but there's tons of sugar. And from what I've seen, they're not getting then the time to go run and burn it off, or getting the amount of PE that they should to be able to, keep burning that off. You look at the children, and most of them are obese, or are diabetic. I know that some areas there are free breakfasts, but those are usually run by the churches or by individuals that have taken that upon themselves, which is grits and something else. They can purchase the Milo if they choose so, but usually there's free juice or hot cocoa with those. And it's just that nutrition. What are they learning from that? Snacking on the Little Debbie's, and then they go home. Their parents are probably working, so they're just going to be snacking on this.
Gotcha. I'm not sure what happened to Gina, but Sian, if you want to respond to Alea's original question in terms of some of the test results and just how it feels, you being one of the major kind of stakeholders in this entire process.
Right. You want to know something? It sounds cheesy, but sometimes I sit down and when I think about it, and I just cry. Actually, it breaks my heart because of some of the things that Gina. We're setting these people. What kind of lives? We've taken away that option from them because I think that every citizen deserves, and their basic right is a good, solid, foundational education. And the fact that these children are graduating and being promoted through schools illiterate, innumerate, I don't know if that's a real word, but I'm making it up right now. They cannot do basic math, and they cannot read or write. And so what they're going to do? They're going to do housekeeping and what? Where can they go from there? And then we have a whole country jam-packed with people that can't even communicate. You know what I'm saying? I'm in a group on Facebook, and it's a group for fun, but we kind of poke fun at people's work. And sometimes we laugh at this, and then I think, this isn't even funny, because this is what this person thinks is how you spell Grupa. It was, I can't remember how she spelled it, but it was terrible. And I thought, it's tragic. It's tragic is what I think. Those averages are tragic, because you know why? That's the average. That means a significant portion of those is still very low. Lower than that. Heartbreaking. That's what my answer is. Heartbreaking. Okay.
I actually agree with what you guys are saying. I remember this summer for community service, I went to one of the children's homes, and what stood out to me the most was that I had this sort of attachment to this little boy. He was so adorable and he was so sweet, and I was like, yes, I wish I could adopt this boy. And then speaking to him, I asked him what grade he's in. He says, I'm going into grade 3. I said, okay, so let's read. Let's read something. He could not read simple words. He could not sound them out. Cat, dog, I had to help him. And so that just, I don't know, it really stuck with me that there are people being promoted, there are kids being promoted to grade 3. They have to do GLAT.
Mm-hmm.
The exam means that they have to read, they do comprehension. Why are we moving them to these grades? Why are we not having classes for them? Why are we not trying to pick them up and to make them progress? Why are we doing this to our children, to the people who we want to lead when we're gone? Why are we doing this? It's really heartbreaking to me.
No, absolutely. And I don't know where I had dropped off before. I think, Sian, you had taken over. Thank you. But and then when I came back, I was hearing you talking about the cycle of jobs as well, the housekeeping, and that in itself is a very, very sad just entity. You know, you look and you say, okay, where are you supposed to go work? Our biggest industry is tourism, and tourism in itself is a dependent income. You're depending on somebody else. So, you know, I mean, comparing it, for lack of betterness, to the slave days. Have we really emancipated ourselves to stand on our own feet, or we're still in that dependent mode, depending on tourism to come here?
That is so true.
And that's sad. And then the people that do get educated to do other things, they leave, and they don't come back because the jobs for them are not here.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I know quite a number of, well, I have a couple friends who refuse to come back because they say they know they won't get paid the way they should. You'll find now in certain job areas, that in certain fields, that they will not be paid and they will not be hired because the job that they're trying to get, no matter how big or how small, sometimes most of the time they end up being overqualified, and so they just don't get a job. And because of that, a lot of them they refuse to come back here.
Yeah. No, that's very true.
I'm gonna ask a real quick question, guys, and then I'll just drop out again. In terms of investment, as it relates right now, I think education is the largest, if I'm not mistaken, budget line item of our entire annual recurring budget. Do we need to throw more money at this problem, Sian and Gina? Is that what we need? More money, more money, more money? Or is it a fundamental issue in terms of the philosophy we have towards education right now, or is it more money? I'll just throw it out to both of you guys. Sian, I don't know if you want to jump in first.
I think that could more money help? Yes, but I think that you hit the nail on the head when you said, is it really a philosophical problem? And I think it is, and which is what I started to say earlier, which is that we're trying to fix new problems with old ways. And I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. There's value in knowing where we've come from, and we need to know where we came from. Why are we educating like this? Why is it set up that way, where everybody's bunched together in one room and we're sitting down with one person, the sage on the stage, as they call it. One person is doing the instructing, and the children are sort of kind of force-fed this information. And you know what? Our world doesn't really work like that anymore. We're not in a place where people are reporting to work and sitting down all day and waiting for the boss to tell them what to do. And because I think and I might be jumping ahead, but I'm trying to answer the question, because I think that we need to educate for a different future. I think that we need to reevaluate how we are going about it right now. And the principal objective, I think, is that our children need to graduate knowing how to think critically and creatively, and to be willing to look at things in a completely different way, because that is what we are going to need. We don't know what it's going to look like in 20 years, and that is why we can't really educate for that, but we can educate children to be ready for it, if you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
So I think, yes, could more money help, but really the philosophical change, I think, would be the biggest advantage.
Gina?
I agree. More money would help because it could break up the classrooms that have 25 plus children in it and break them into two. Have two teachers teaching with 12 to 13 kids per classroom, so you actually have a one-on-one with your kids and sit down with them. I know back when I was in the States, my first second grade split class, I had 27 students in my class. I had a teacher's aide, but there were times when there'd be one child that I would not even have a 5-minute interaction with throughout the whole day. They're usually your high-achieving students because you give them their work, they finish it, you say, pat on the back, well done. And that's all of that you would get with them. And every child needs to have that time to say, oh, how did you come to that conclusion? What did you do? What do you think about this? Instead of just teaching them that there's one way to do things, you can teach them that there's 5 ways to do one thing. And by doing the learning style where, I remember one time I sat down, the group, my classroom, sat in the carpet in the circle with a box and this and that, and I said, I want to build this. How should we do it? And they're looking at me for the answers, and I'm looking at them for the answers. Because it was just how are we going to do this? We've got rope in here, we've got boxes, we've got popsicle sticks. Find whatever you can, and let's build this bridge, and let's see how many weights we can put on it. And through that exercise, the kids were able to learn, oh, the structures that have the triangles are going to hold more, instead of me standing in front of the class saying, there's these different types of bridges, and this one holds the most, and them just going, okay, that one holds the most weight. It was hands-on. They were learning, they were creating, and they were playing. And it was magical. And I wish everybody could have that. So in that case, yes, I do think more money is an issue, because I know when I came here to this island, I was getting paid $26,000 a year. That's just over $2,000 a month. Granted, I was a single woman here, but I paid $60,000 back in the States for my degree, so I'm paying $300 right off the month for that. I wasn't getting any health insurance or anything here, so that's another, almost $200 out of my pocket to make sure that I don't go broke if I get sick. And I could barely afford fresh fruit and veg. The only, the fresh fruit and veg you can get is down at Potter's Keep, but who has time to drive down there when you're working during the day? So, I mean, it's just more money for the teachers, yes, and more money for classrooms, for ample classrooms, for supplies. I know teachers that are teaching in government schools that don't have enough seats for their children, that don't have enough desks, enough books. How are you supposed to teach if you don't have the right supplies? I know the teachers in Gambia don't even have toilet roll. They were purchasing toilet roll out of their own pockets for the children there. Okay, so where is this money being misappropriated? That's the other thing. Where is it just poofing to? And going, look at the Stephen Dillett School off of Wolf Road. Did you know that school has no windows? Look at it. The next time you drive past it, there are no windows in the classrooms, and they're the ones that were having this AC problem this last year. Why?
Wow.
They have no flipping windows. Who in their right mind let somebody build this? How is that even to code? Is it because they knew somebody, and then they got the contract that way? I mean, is it...
Well, Stephen Dillett, the interesting thing with Stephen Dillett and I think a few other, I think Uriah McPhee, and maybe there's one other school that's completely air-conditioned without any windows. That was an experiment that was done, I believe, and the funny thing is it was proven to be a massive mistake, and that kids learn better when they're exposed to natural light and there's a view to the outside and that sort of stuff. But those schools still remain, so we're still forcing these children to try, to learn in a failed experiment. It is beyond me, but that's indicative of where we are in terms of the rut and the hamster wheel. Sorry, go ahead, Alea.
Okay, so Gina, I remember that a while ago, I think I was in 8th grade, and I came to school, and we were like, okay, we're going to Wendy's or whatever, and it was after school, so a bunch of us went. It was me and my friends. We went to Wendy's, and our school is opposite a government school. So we went to Wendy's and we saw them there, and one of my friends, she overheard them talking about us, and they're like, oh, they think they're so good, they think they're better than us because they don't have enough, they have a lot of books and they have desks. And in my head I was thinking, this is a school that's supposed to be sponsored by the government. Where where's the minister of education? What are we doing towards this problem to fix this? And I think the money is only a part of the problem, because we need to pay our teachers more. Really, in countries like India, you will find that the way they respect the teachers is by touching their feet. That is the height of respect. They get down on their knees and they touch a teacher's feet because they know the only way somebody can get knowledge is from a teacher. That's how we learn. That's how we get knowledge. They're pretty much they're pretty much the backbone of our country. And so we've all heard or at least read about the issue of certain high school campuses or buildings being in disrepair even after contracts were doled out. What are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on the curriculum in our schools? Because I personally believe that the curriculum isn't that strong. Going into elementary, I was straight A's, 4.0, 3.9, all of that. And then going into 7th grade and 8th grade, my grades started to wane because I wasn't used to the curriculum. Things were tough. And then I found it was kind of shaky for my peers because the way my school was set up, the curriculum, I think they were experimenting or whatever, but the curriculum was sort of, it was centered on our school. We had a whole curriculum, then it moved to the BGCSEs, then it moved to the SATs, and then I think rather than compiling a list of topics from both of those and then just creating a syllabus around that, it was a total mess. And because of that, a lot of the students from last year, they failed point blank. They didn't even have any point of return. They just failed, flat out failed on their face. And so what are your thoughts on the curriculum in our schools, and what are your thoughts on the disrepaired facilities, even with the contracts being given?
Is that directed towards me? I'm sorry.
Yes, it could be either.
Okay, either. Yeah, no, definitely. There needs to be money put back into these buildings. The disrepair is just, it's, like any building, it's going to grow, and it needs to grow with the kids. I know that there's more kids going into some schools, and that needs to change with them. And yeah, like you said, I don't know if different contractors are being misappropriated with the money there. Don't know where that is going. As far as the curriculum, when I taught here, I was teaching at a private school that had their own curriculum. Mm-hmm. And that is interesting too, because there's not just, maybe there is in the public schools. I'm not very familiar with that, if there is just one curriculum for that. Mm-hmm. And are there standards that they each have to live up to in an overall? I'm not sure, but it seems like the private schools all get to pick and choose the different curriculums that they want to use. And unless you're reporting back to a larger umbrella, how do you know that the kids are supposed to be learning what they're Dan, do you have any insight in that?
Yeah, I was going to jump in there and say that as you were talking, I was trying to remember what I read about the laws, because I've read the laws on education here, and the basic law is that your child has to be caused to learn. It's very vague language, and which I think leaves it open for interpretation. I know that private schools are held to some standard by the government in that, well, I can speak for the school I work at. We're an early learning facility, and we have a government agent who's assigned to us, and she comes and checks to make sure, really, she checks facilities, like the number of students per square foot and that kind of thing, and then she also asks questions about curriculum and that kind of thing. But I think that ultimately the schools are left to their own devices. The private schools are, and they can offer whatever they want. I actually also don't know what the government curriculum is. I don't know if it's one overarching curriculum and everyone does the same thing. And in this way, I sort of wish we could do like an open to the crowd and hear what they're saying, because I don't know. But Alea, do you know if the government schools all have or Farrell?
Well, I just wanted to say more than likely what we're going to do, because we realize that both of you, this is definitely coming from a private school perspective, even with Alea as the moderator. we probably, we would hope to do a follow-up session with the same type of theme with maybe some government school or public school educators and maybe even a public school student. That's something that we need
That'd be great.
It would.
to work on because some to have the parallel and to kind of compare the different perspectives and kind of I think it just would be invaluable in terms of the private public systems and what is the reality along both of those separate tracks, but we're 40 minutes in, so I kind of just wanted to start asking you guys about maybe some solutions. I think we do know we're in a rut for sure, and we've been here for a very long time, and we see, like I said, we see with other areas of our society and our culture and our country. But what are some of the realistic? Because I would actually like to take away some actions here, and I maybe even craft a document and present it to the minister or one of the directors of education or whatever, based off of the summary of our conversation here and all the amazing comments we've gotten on all the educational threads. What is and Sian, I'll throw it over to you. What are some of the realistic, maybe not so expensive, practical solutions that we can start to implement or to take to turn this thing around? I know it usually takes maybe 20, 30 years to really see the investment in education manifest itself. But where can we start in a realistic manner, something that we can kind of do tomorrow or within a week if you were tasked with that?
That's a toughie. I'm drawing. I mean, I think. Okay, the word that is happening in my head is opening it up, but it's such a vague term. What I'm thinking is that we need to both tighten our grip on some things and open our grip on other things. And I think that what could be done tomorrow, for example, is to touch on something that Gina said and invite more project-based learning into our school systems. And I think you can do that really without a ton of money. I think resources can be made available. And by project-based, I mean what she said. Oh, how do bridges work? Well, let's build a bridge. Here's group A. You guys build a suspension bridge. You guys build this kind of bridge. You guys build, and this is a physics lesson, but it's also creativity and it's also math because they're having to do all the measuring. And physics is math. Sorry, physics is the purest math, isn't it? Anyway. The point is, I think, yes, an easy way in is projects. I think that if we stepped away from the desks a little bit more and we're open to trying things on the floor, and I don't mean literally the floor, but I do mean the floor, tomorrow you could start doing that. I think tomorrow we could say to our teachers, okay, guess what, guys? I know it's going to take some work from you, but if there's something that you're trying to teach that you feel like would be communicated better in a project, but a group project in the room, do it. Cardboard. You can get cardboard and build things with cardboard and tape. You know what I mean? And I think gardening. I mean, these things we can do right now where the children are physically doing things. That's my quickest, cheapest, most immediate.
Thank you, Gina.
Absolutely. I think we need less paperwork, less time at the desks. Don't get me wrong, sometimes worksheets and acknowledging that now your math tables and this and that, that's a good thing to have, but to have somebody sitting down for hour upon hour just pushing out paperwork and just sitting at this desk, that doesn't get you thinking. That doesn't build people that are able to think and operate outside of the box. The two biggest things that I kind of had in my head before I started this morning was invest and then back to the basics. We do need to move forward, but in order to move forward, I think we do have to go back to the basics. Like Sian was saying, garden. Show these kids how to make your own food. That's a huge thing. Some of these kids don't even know what a carrot looks like when you pull it out of the ground. They just know what it looks like in the 5-pound bag in the grocery store. Or, like get back to the basics with that.
You know what's good about that, Gina? I don't want to interrupt you, but I really want to jump on that point. And that brings us back to your food point, which was, these kids are not getting healthy round meals, a lot of them. And if they are growing this food that they can eat themselves, how wonderful a way to tie in foods. First of all, food security, right? Healthy food, and that kind of thing into our children's lives. Okay, go ahead, Gina. Sorry.
Oh, and not only that, but then showing them how to compost.
Mm-hmm.
And say, okay, this waste can be reused, and you can compost it, and then you can use that to fertilize your garden again. You know, I mean, that's a whole circle in itself. It's not just the, oh, I threw it away. Well, when you throw something away, what does that mean? Where does that go?
Mm-hmm.
So owning that a bit more. Another thing that kind of hit me was, I know vocations start at about, what age is it? About 14, I think? So you can
Vocational schools?
Yeah.
Yeah. Secondary level.
I think it is about, you know, and to me, that age needs to be lowered. Because some kids, you know, I mean, some kids are going to excel in hands-on work. And by the time they're 14, they're going to have given up on school.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're going to be told time and time again that they're stupid or they didn't make the ranks because they're getting D's on tests. And so by that time, they've given up. And they've just taken on that self-fulfilling prophecy that the piece of paper is telling them that they're not worthy. You know, I was so frustrated a few weeks, months, I don't remember when it was, when I saw the paper and it had on the front the gentleman that won the spelling bee. And it was, you know, this big, oh, hooray, hooray. That's great, and that's great to show him support and whatnot, but most people don't know that spelling is in no way correlated with intelligence. If I was, I'm a horrible speller.
Mind blown right now. There's no correlation. What? All this time? Because my spelling sucks. Okay, that's good.
No
I feel better
correlation.
about
Does that make you
myself
feel
now.
better? But honestly, it's a memory part in your brain. It is not correlated with intelligence. And so when I saw that, I was like, well, that's good that this gentleman made the front page of the paper because, you know, it's something to look up for. But why aren't we holding a science fair and an art fair and celebrating those kids just as much? It's not just, oh, well done you can remember how to spell this. If you asked me, well, don't, but if you asked me how to spell arthritis, I'd probably get it wrong, and I'd probably have to write it out a few times. It's just how I function, you know, but I love science. I love math. And so to have different things so different kids can shine. And I'm not saying to belittle spelling, because I've had kids in my class where that's where they do their 100%, and that's their pat on their back. But to give a kid every chance to shine. And you're going to know at a younger age than 14 whether, you know what, this kid isn't going to be an accountant, this kid isn't going to be a lawyer, and this kid isn't going to be a doctor. Because to me, those are the three things that we seem to be pushing out right now that say stay on this island.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, go ahead, dear.
With the science fair and the math fair, I've noticed that they actually do have a couple sections, or I think they do praise people who are students who are good in science and math, because in the ministry, if you walk in, you will find that there are tons. I'm no joke. There are tons of projects and papers, and they're really pushing the students. But I think it really could be better. The national, we should have a national science fair. That would be great. But to ask you this question, I've had a few instances where I've been taught by teachers who didn't understand the subject or didn't have sufficient knowledge on it, so I or another student would have to chime in and correct them altogether. So have either of you had an experience with a teacher who was ill-prepared or ill-informed, and what could be the reason behind hiring teachers like that?
I have. I've had a teacher that was ill-prepared and ill-informed. And I remember going home and laughing at her with my parents because she didn't know how to pronounce a word. But I think that, certainly speaking to our situation here, I think that those teachers are products of our education system here. And I'm talking about the teachers that really can't even speak standard English. And please hear me say that there is tremendous value in our own speech patterns and our Bahamian dialect.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also important that people know how to speak standard English, and it's quite sad that even teachers that are teaching English sometimes cannot even speak standard English. And I think that just it's part of that hamster wheel of same thing happening again. We're producing people that can't do it. They go back in the system. They teach more people that can't do it. And I think the teachers are just hired to answer your question, because sometimes they just need a warm body in the room, and the person has the basic qualifications, and they're there. They can fill it because teaching is a non-paying job. So breadwinners can't really take a teaching job, which is why women ended up being teachers, right? Because the people can't afford to pay. They can't afford to support a family on that income. I don't know where I went with that. Sorry, I went off the track. Anyway, yes.
That's a very interesting point, though. I never looked at it like that. Very interesting. Yeah, the breadwinner could not be a teacher. You're absolutely right.
No. I mean, there are households where there are breadwinners who are teachers, but they really, they're struggling. And those people are doing it because they love it. I took a huge pay cut to become a teacher. And I love it, but like Gina said, it doesn't really pay. And if I didn't have a husband, I couldn't possibly teach.
Well, this brings up a really good point. Someone in one of the posts, there was some comments that this misconception that in Finland teachers were paid as much as doctors. I think that was debunked, and I mean they make a comfortable salary, but nowhere near as much as the doctors do. Is it that teachers need to be paid more, or is it that teachers need to be respected more, or and the value that the actual value that they provide to the society compared to some of the revered professions it's definitely in our country, like lawyers and that sort of stuff. Is it a respect issue that teachers would be more grateful for at this point, and just in terms of the value that the inherent value that they deliver to the society, or is it again we should pay our teachers a lot more? That may be a self-serving answer right there, or question.
I think it's both. I mean, on a personal level, Farrell, how much money did you put into your profession this last year?
Yeah.
How much of your personal wallet did you open up and pay back into your profession?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many doctors are opening up their own wallets to buy their own needles or their own syringes, but I know that teachers on average are spending $400 to $500 of their own salary in their classrooms every year, both here and in the States.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I was in the States, I worked in just outside the town I grew up in, so it's lower to middle income farming families. I had working poor families, kids in my class that hadn't had breakfast, so I had a stash of granola bars if they came late because their mother had been working all night, and by the time the father came back with the car, it was too late to get them to school on time, or even for breakfast, free breakfast. So I'd have a stash of granola bars. Always took a couple extra bananas in my lunch because I knew, come 10 o'clock for recess time, little Johnny's going to be hungry again, When I worked here, I bought the books for my library. I bought the posters in my classroom. Even like I said recently, I know the teachers at Gambia are buying toilet tissue for their school. Yes, it's supposed to be allocated from the Ministry of Education, but where? Where is it going? And that creates burnout. You can only love your job so much and so long when you're getting pennies and you're putting everything into it and you don't feel that you're getting the respect back out of it. That can only go so long. You're going to get burnt out on it, and you're going to go, well, I might as well do a job that I hate because it's going to pay me more money.
And I think that I wanted to say that I think one of the factors about the respect that teachers garner here, I think that, there's some lip service. Yeah, teachers are great. We couldn't do it without them. But ultimately, I think the reason that teachers don't garner the respect, and by respect I'm using very loosely, but I guess the cred that doctors and lawyers garner, like I want to be that, is the money, right? I mean, we have a society where money is a high priority, which we need the money, but people want to have lots of it so they can have brand names on their shirts and they can have the tags on everything, as it were. And teachers certainly don't roll like that, so they're not getting that. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Teachers no BMWs.
And it is a vicious cycle. I have a good girlfriend who has a 17-year-old daughter, and she's like, I can't find a job for her, even for the summer work. And I kind of stepped back and was like, really? And then I thought about it. It's because you have people that finish high school, don't get accepted to college, so they get a job working at Wendy's or whatever full time, and that's their full-time job. You know, they can't then, they're stuck there. They can't afford to go back to college, usually end up starting a family, and then they can't leave that job. But then there's no early sector jobs for these high school students to start working out at pizza places, you know, gas stations. There's none of those entry-level jobs to play around with. You know, in high school, I worked at a pizza place, and in grad school and undergrad, I was, you know, managing retail stores. But that gave me other life skills of time management, scheduling management, people management skills, and these kids aren't getting the opportunity to even do that. I mean, Alea, have you found that? What have you done? Is there any opportunity you see for kids to make money at a young age besides standing outside the store saying, sponsor me?
A lot of the kids I work with, my peers, why am I saying kids? My peers, they do have summer jobs, retail stores. Some of them work at, some of them worked with surgeons. Some of them work in their fields. I know I'm actually in the process of speaking to someone who's doing stem cell research and archaeology in this country, and so I'm actually going to work with them this Christmas as well. So I think there are opportunities, but it just depends on if you actually want to do it, if you have the drive to do it. So a question, what about, this is still about teachers, I got a question, is the current program at COB properly preparing teachers? And what systems could be in place to better train teachers or monitor their performance?
I don't know. I don't know about COB's program.
You don't? Okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not familiar with their program, so I can't speak to that as well.
I didn't even know they had a teacher program.
Yeah, no, they do. They do. A lot of teachers go through that, and you know, and you want you, and it's almost like you're guaranteed a job if you go through the through COB's program. I mean, it is a very legitimate question in terms of the quality of the level of education that's being delivered in the classroom. That is a vital question, and it's definitely something that I think we should definitely delve into with when we do the governmental series. So let's definitely hold on to that question, Alea. I think that's a very important one. But one thing I want to ask both Jana and Sian real quick. Again, the countries that have the best educational systems in the world, one thing that was consistent is their commitment and their acceptance of education being a very important role in the success of a child and later into adulthood. We are far from that. I think we think that okay, you just need a basic education. You just need to know how to read and write, and then we've succeeded. Like Gina said, then you can get the hotel job if you can do that. But what are some of the things we can do as a country, and where's the driving force comes from for us to start to appreciate the educational journey and really the tangible results you can get as an adult from that journey from end to end? How do we start turning that corner as a country and appreciating that and being collectively committed to that journey?
Yeah.
I think that we settle for mediocrity so much here. We're so complacent that there is really, I'm not seeing an inherent drive. It's sort of like, because of what is, that's what people expect, you know? Yeah, they're looking forward to the hotel job, you know what I mean? People don't really even want more than that. So I think the thing is to create, I don't know, we need to maybe create, and Gina, I guess I want you to jump in because I'm pondering here, but I think we need to create examples or people to look up to, role models maybe that you know are thriving and passionate and doing something that they love here. And I mean, I don't know. Go ahead, Gina. Go.
I mean, Alea, when I was talking about jobs and whatnot, and you said that you've been working with the stem cell research and archaeology, was that something that you had to find out yourself, or your parents? Who kind of, you know, headwayed that for you?
Well, of course, I had to look for it myself, and then my mom, I actually got really nervous. I'm really shy sometimes, So it was a pretty big deal to work with somebody who I wanted. That's literally, those are my dream jobs. So my mom spoke to them. I spoke to them a couple times, and now we're pretty much negotiating the times. So it was a double joint operation.
Okay. I mean, what if that was then put almost in another whole job in a school district? What if there was somebody that was with the kids one-on-one saying, hey, what is it that you really like? And having the opportunities then to go back into the community, almost like a vacation, almost like a job shadowing these people, to show, you know, students that, hey, these jobs are actually here as well. You know, working within the community itself. Because what I've noticed a lot too is that there's a lot of people just popping up their own businesses everywhere, which is great, and it's great to have entrepreneurial spirit. But at the same time, if you can start off at one place and build upon that, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
And learning from your uncle, learning from the people that have started, and then maybe you could take over that business or do another branch off of that. You know, that's keeping people here at home and strengthening and giving them kind of an insight of, okay, where could we go from here?
You know, one of the things that I want to do in my school that I'm starting at some point is to incorporate kind of that aspect. It's called it's a classroom interview. And so what you do is or the school has people from different professions come in, and the children get to interview the people and obviously ask them about their job and what they do, and that's an initial stage of exposure. Because I will tell you what, I am 38 and I am still astounded at the kinds of jobs that are out there, like things that people do for a living. I'm like, really, you can do that as a job? You can? Okay, I had no idea. And I think that, again, I think is what I was trying to say earlier, is exposure, is giving people, and government school kids, you know, Alea, I think that you may have an advantage because
I do.
I can't say for sure, but I think you come from a middle-class family, right? And most of our kind of grassroots people, they're not exposed to that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? They're not exposed to archaeology as an option or stem cell research. You know what I'm saying? And I think that to try and get that out there, these things are possible. Guess what? You could be a cameraman for National Geographic. You could go around the world and eat food and tell people how it tastes, and they'll pay you to do it. You know what I mean? Like, I had no idea. And I'm from a middle-class family. So could we incorporate that too, Gina, right? And Alea and Carol. Show our kids the possibilities of what's out there. So they have something.
I mean, in my school, and I think in QC as well, I'm not sure, but personally in Kingsway, you get the chance to choose the career that you want to do, and they actually push you. The administrators, the teachers, they push you. They come together with the entire grade or the class, and they say, hey, okay, if you don't know what you want to do, there are people here who we're going to bring in. They're going to help you. They're going to question you, and they're going to write down your answers, and they're going to help you choose a career, because it's kind of like just to see if you really would enjoy, you know, being a music producer, or being working with the police, or working in social services. It's called, what do we call it? It's I forgot, but it's awesome. Pardon?
Is it like a job fair?
We have one of those, but they're called externships, yes. And you choose the career path you'd like to go down. They actually call the person for you, and you work with them for a few days and get to see, you know, what they do and how they do it, and you have a hands-on experience. And so I think it's awesome. I really would like to see more of that in the government schools. Do you know if they do that anywhere else?
No, really.
Knowledge, you know.
No?
No, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's good that you do that at your school, I mean.
Yeah, so that would be a solution. That would be something that they could do to improve the school system. Have them actually work toward the career that they want to get. And if they're undecided, sort of like me, they can talk to somebody about it and sort themselves out.
Yeah. And that brings up a point. For me, I think that we undervalue apprenticeship.
Mhm.
People really
Mhm.
don't have to go to college for everything. To be an apprentice, you learn so much from doing. That was a side note.
I want to take this and just kind of spin it another road for just a second, because this is something that really opened up my eyes when I moved here.
Mhm.
Um, I was actually quite appalled that there were babies at 1.5, 2 with like formal uniforms going to school. It was very appalling and very shocking to me. I'm all up for play school. I have kids in play school right now. I think it's great to have the interaction at a very young age with other kids and other adults, to have somewhat of a, a craft and a structure and playing through song and whatnot, and some kids aren't getting that at home. That is valuable, but I don't see the value in really having these little kids putting on ties and pleats and pressed uniforms. Are we forcing our young kids to be school kids at a too young of an age? I mean, you look at some of these other countries and their kids aren't starting formal school until 6, 7 years old.
Mhm.
I have a friend whose child is 3 and came home with sight words to learn. I'm like, the sight words they should be learning is row, row, row your boat, and how to sing it and the different variations of it. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think we are in an effort. I think that people, in an effort to combat or to get ahead, we're doing too much too soon. And some of the curricula out there are crazy. Those children are at 2 and 3 coming home with. I was talking about this last night. There's a particular preschool here where the kids come home with straight up homework at age 3, and it's like my friend's kid had, I want to say, about 4 or 5 sheets that he had to complete for homework to bring back to school the next day, and he sat at a desk all day. This is a 3-year-old. He wasn't using any Play-Doh. He wasn't using any paint. He wasn't doing any of those activities. And the problem there is that we think that play is pointless and useless and worthless. And what we don't understand as parents need to be educated, and some teachers don't understand, is that play is critical in the development of a young child's social, emotional, and academic self. And we undervalue it and relegate it, that and creativity, and try to school them very quickly. I had people come to me when I was teaching 2-year-olds and say, oh, I've homeschooled her. She already knows her shapes. She already knows her numbers. She already knows her alphabet. So you can just build on that. And I'm thinking, yeah, no, I'm not doing any building on that. She's coming to play. And the uniform, I think, is maybe kind of a symptom of that mind that they are going to be educated at school. And when I see little kids in uniforms, I'm like, they're little kids. Like, let them wear their place clothes and have fun.
Absolutely.
Anyway.
And not only thinking, but gosh, how much electricity are we wasting then heating up our iron to iron those pleats? That's thousands of dollars right there for these little kids that just need to be running around getting dirty. There's a lot to learn from the dirt.
So I remember speaking to Tom, and he mentioned that I think in Germany that that kindergarten isn't mandatory, and at least 95% of students do not begin their primary school education before the age of 6. So what do you think about that? What age do you guys feel children should be actually going into school to actually learn, not just to play, but to get a balance of both of those?
I personally think, 5, 6 years old is a good stepping stone, but not 5 years old to be, some kids, do not get me wrong, some kids are ready to read without being pushed, but not placing such an emphasis on it. But I would say 5 years old, know your phonics, know your alphabet, obviously be able to identify your colors, and start your blends. That's for 5. That right there would be, and counting and be number recognition. Start Start reading it at 6 when you've got that background to build upon, instead of just pushing everything onto them at such a young age. I think that creates a burnout as well. So by the time you get to high school and you get to the O levels, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm done with this. I think that's, that's one part where we could change, is just cut back a bit on these kids. Let them be kids.
Okay. I want to comment on the question there, Alea.
Okay, sure.
You said, I'm going to not go verbatim. When do we think that children should go to school to start learning, not just playing? I think that was basically the gist of it.
Yes.
And I want to say that I think that breaking them apart like that, playing and learning being separate, I think we could do well to
put them together.
That being alive is learning. So I think that living is learning. And so it's, I think, a bit of a, maybe it's semantics, but I think it's a bit of a mistake to think that there is a point when you begin learning. Do you know what I'm saying? Because the fact is, we acquire language without any formal instruction. We acquire our language within the first 2 years of our lives. And no one has to sit down and tell us to say no, and tell us to say I want, and tell us to say mine. We figure these things out because we were born to learn. And I think that if we recognize that children want to learn, children are learning by the fact that they are being around people doing things, we can start to look at the child a little bit more holistically and think of education in different terms, where everything is a learning experience. And it's not that this time is for learning. Okay, now we're going to do learning over here, and this part is for playing, and this part is for eating. Like this, I think that when we do a more integral approach, and this is just a commentary that I'm using, jumping off of your thing, is then we can have a better idea of how education really works, because it's not segmented. I don't think it's segmented. Just the way that we have separated math and English and science and that. I think that there are avenues where all of those things come together, and it's a beautiful synergy of really how life works. And I think if we adopt that framework in education, clearly there will be times when you have to do math separately and science separately and that kind of thing. But especially for early learning, which is my area of biggest concern, I guess, I think that when we have a more holistic approach where, because I homeschool my kids, and when they were little, I never did a single thing formal learning with them. Like, I didn't sit them down and say, these are your letters, these are your numbers. But I talked to my kids, right? I mean, we had conversations, and we had projects. We were baking together, and going to the groceries together, and so they were getting the math, they were getting the science, they were getting all those things, but they didn't know. You know what I mean? So I think that I just want to say that if we can do that with education, early learning, it's all one big thing. It is a great big ball of all the things. It will be a more holistic way of
Sian, if I could add something to that too, I think it speaks to, in terms of that disconnect, it also kind of translates into a more rigid separation between learning and living. I think majority of Bahamians, and this is private and public in my opinion, in terms of the parents, they believe that the educational journey is restricted to 8 to 3, Monday through Friday. When I drop my child off, that's when the education starts, and when I pick them up, then we go back to living.
Yeah.
I don't think we really appreciate that learning and education is a 24-hour process. I mean, it never stops. It's not exclusive to just the classroom and the school, and that you guys as educators, you actually don't own our child's educational journey. We do as parents. We are the ones that own it. You are a major player in it, but ultimately we own it. I think in the Bahamas we believe that the school owns it, and we blame you. When my child is not performing, it's your fault. It is the school fault. It is the government's fault. I think that is a major mindset that needs to shift in the Bahamas, in terms of us realizing that education is always, every second of every day, there's an opportunity for a child to be learning and experiencing and being exposed to certain things, opposed to it's just your job as an educator, and it's completely up to you if they fail or if they succeed. I think that's something that we need to change drastically.
And I don't think you can ever stop having fun, really. Whether you're in high school, middle school, take something and make it fun. You're not going to remember doing and learning unless you are having fun. I remember one project I did with my third graders was building a parachute, so the egg didn't crack. And I met one of the mothers in the grocery store, and she was like, "You're the reason I've just bought 3 dozen eggs, because my child has been throwing eggs off the kitchen all weekend." And I'm like, well, thanks, I guess. But, that kid obviously it impacted him, and he's like, no, I'm going to get this, and tweaked things and did this and that, and he was having fun, obviously. So, and growing and learning, like Sian said, it's not just math, it's not just reading, it's not just science. Bring them together and do things, together collectively. There's one school completely in Portland, Oregon, where I'm from, that they do themes for the whole year. I know one year, and this is completely, considered an alternative school, but one year they did the circus. And so they turned their room into a circus tent. And the kids had to sew together fabric to make the big tent. They had to learn how pulleys worked to bring up different backdrops and whatnot.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they learned to juggle what objects were better to juggle because of the weight and this and that. And then at the end of the year, put on their circus show. And so they learned through playing the whole year. And it was amazing. And the show, and I actually went to the show, and I was blown away. And they could then explain to me, oh yeah, this worked this way, and this works this way. And yes, I mean, there's math involved with that as well, because the teacher would throw things out to them and say, okay, we've got a backdrop that weighs 50 pounds. How many pulleys are we going to need? How much length of rope are we going to need? I mean, it's almost like being a moderator in your classroom instead of standing up there and saying, I know everything.
A facilitator, which is what I like to call myself. I'm a facilitator.
Yes, absolutely. Throwing things out there, and the brilliant minds of children will come back and they'll teach you more than you could have ever have learned in any formal situation.
Beautifully said. So, Sian, I remember you mentioned that you researched progressive models for education. So how do you think they could be moved into our educational system?
I think we have to do the baby steps. I don't even know if we could even do a broad scale version. My favorite model of progressive education is something known as democratic education. And it's what it sounds like. The children are a part of the process, the decision-making process of what they're going to learn. So it's child-centered, and they vote on group activities to group activity, or the facilitator and determines a full surrender here. And they're interested in the facilitator says, well, okay, we can do this, this, and that. But really, it's the child that is driving that ship. And so the democratic schools, there are several around the United States, and several around the world, actually. And in South Korea, there are 150 democratic schools. And I wonder how they figure into that education system, side note. But I'm not sure if we could do that nationwide, because it takes a really, really open mind to let those reins go a little bit and say, okay, you can drive this ship, you can make determinations on what it is that you want to learn, because truth is their timetable is not our timetable, the children. And yeah, maybe, yes, there are ages of development where these things are most likely to stick, but some kids, they don't want to read till they're 7 or 8, Some kids want to read at 2.5 and 3. And I think that if there was anything I could implement across the board in our schools, it would be to let that timeline slacken up a bit and let these children go at the pace that they need to go. Because guess what? Shakespeare is not a mathematician, right? Einstein does not write poems. We cannot expect everyone to know all the things at the same time because they're the same age. This is the biggest problem I have with education, is that we have as Ken Robinson says, stamped them by batch date and said, okay, well, you guys are in the same batch, you'll know all the same things at the same time, end of story. And it doesn't work like that in real life, you know. Sure, again, there are developmental milestones, but we have to make account for the fact that they're individuals. They're people, and they're not just empty heads that we're trying to pour education into. They're people that have interests, and they're curious, and if we feed that curiosity, if we take their hand when they say, please, take me down this path, I think that they would do wonders. John Taylor Gatto, another educator I respect, he says, no one can be empathic. And I really believe that. I think that that's why some people make out, because they make the decision on anybody to give this to me. I am taking this and I'm running with it. And those are the odd few that make it out. When I say make it out, I mean from the underprivileged class. But the middle class and upper class people, they have that people around them going, you can do it, we support you, we love you, you're great, yay, you know. And anyway, sidetrack. Democratic education, and if we could just relax the timeline a bit and say, you know what, do it when you're ready, we're right here for you, I think that's what would really help.
All right, just everybody, Sian and Gina and Alea, we're about an hour and 20 minutes in, so what we, you know, this is we've kind of gone beyond like an hour 10-minute time frame as we try to work with, because you kind of lose your audience after that, you know. You guys have been wonderful. I probably would, you know, ask you both to kind of and Alea, I'll also give you the opportunity as well. If you can just kind of share some parting words, something that you would want, you know, to be memorable, taken away from this entire session that we can think about and we can maybe mull over, and many of us as parents, maybe things that we can implement today with our own children. So just, you know, just a few seconds each. Gina, if you can start for me, please.
Okay. You know what Sian was saying, looking at different systems around the world. As a teacher, you beg, borrow, and steal ideas. You don't try to reinvent the wheel. You look at what's working, and you then implement that as well. I think we need to stop looking at the rigorous this curriculum that's been in place with schools and start looking at the broader picture. And I think that will help in the long run. That's not a quick fix, and that's not a cheap fix. But I do think that is a forward way of thinking, and people are going to be scared to death to do that because it's change. And God forbid we do anything that has to do with change and you know, rattle people. But that is one of the things that we can start changing.
Thank you, Sian.
I used to look at their children as people who want to learn, and to try to help to involve their children in their education, because the sooner they know that they're responsible, that they can be responsible in a good way, the better, you know? That's my closing words.
Excellent, thank you. Alea, being, you know, you're on the ground, you're part of the system that we're talking about, we're critiquing, and we're tearing apart. You know, what are some of the things that you'd like us to leave with, coming from a student's perspective?
Gina and Sian pretty much touched on it, even though it was kind of in regards to elementary. I think it could be applied to in the high school levels, because being 100% real, right now I'm letting this all go, I'm just going to say this, I am so bored. You guys don't understand. I have to speak to my parents, well, my mom, and I have to talk to her, and I say, I'm bored, and she would go, you can't change what the teacher is doing sometimes, even if you suggest, because, you know, you'd give the teacher a suggestion. You'd say, oh, can we do this? Can we do that? They won't listen. So education is the backbone of a country, and the road to fixing it, to fixing our system won't be easy, but if we all come together and make solutions that we all agree with and we actually work on it bit by bit, we can really, really become a super strong nation in regards to education.
Wow, thank you so much, and thank you to the panelists, and thank you, Alea, for your debut as a moderator, a guest moderator. You did a wonderful job, and
thank you.
Sian and Gina, I think you guys provided some invaluable insight, and
Yes, they
And
did.
I mean, I just
Thank
love
you.
both of you guys are very, very forward thinkers, and I think
Mhm.
that always has to be the constant with education. You have to have forward thinkers involved with that process. Otherwise, we'll end up where we are now. So maybe we can set up an interview with you, or a meeting with you and the Minister of Education. You can maybe shed some of your ideas and your perspectives with him and start to see some things change. But honestly, we don't want these type of conversations to be empty conversations that are just limited to Bahamas free thinkers. We do want to find a method of delivering these to the necessary persons and decision makers and stakeholders in these industries to really bring about change. That's a commitment for me, and I think the rest of the admins as well. So this isn't just the end of this conversation, by the way. We do want to take these things and go further with them and really start to bring about change in the country. So, but thank you all for participating. It was awesome, very enlightening, and for everybody who's viewing, this session will be available for viewing maybe in a few minutes through a YouTube link. And I think we keep it there for a while for persons who may have missed. So just to let all the panelists and Alea know, this is going to be available for some time. If you want to share with your friends and family or whatever the case may be, it'll be there for them to view. Thank you so
Thank
much. It
you,
was
Farrell. Thank
awesome.
you,
Thank you to
Farrell,
all of
Alea.
our
Thank you, Tina.
viewers.
Thanks, everybody. I had a great time. Have a
I
great
did as well.
Excellent.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Time went by far too fast, and there's still so many things to chat about.
And I know this
Mhm.
conversation is huge, and more than likely we're going to have many, many sessions about education, and we may have some of you back on again. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank
Take
you.
You
care.
too.